Ariel Powers' beef with Cheryl Reeve. It is Ariel Powers, the new player for the Indiana Fever, who they just signed, and her beef with Cheryl Reeve. And if you guys are wondering why this is relevant, the Indiana Fever tonight are in fact playing the Minnesota Lynx.
In a league that's currently exploding with new fans and unprecedented attention, the WNBA is delivering storylines that feel like they were written in Hollywood. But the drama unfolding around the Indiana Fever isn't a script. It's a raw, unfiltered clash of ego, history, and pure animosity that has turned a simple roster move into the league's most compelling blood feud. This is a story about a team pushed to the brink of desperation, a star player cast out and hungry for revenge, and a legendary coach so entrenched in her ways she'd rather publicly humiliate her own player than share an armrest. The Indiana Fever thought they were just signing someone to fill a jersey. What they really did was light the fuse on a time bomb that was already set to explode, creating a perfect storm of chaos that has everyone in the basketball world asking one question: who is going to get the last laugh?
The Indiana Fever have signed Ariel Powers to a 7-day hardship contract. A very spicy but very capable player. So let's go over everything there is to know about Ariel Powers.
To truly understand the magnitude of this situation, you first have to grasp just how dire things were in Indiana. The Fever's locker room has become a revolving door of injuries, looking more like a MASH unit than a professional basketball team. The weight of the franchise rests on the shoulders of rookie phenom Caitlin Clark, who herself is fighting through a nagging groin injury, a constant reminder of the physical toll of her whirlwind transition to the pros. But she's not alone. Key veterans like Sophie Cunningham and Odyssey Sims are down. Promising young players like Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald are sidelined. The team was literally running out of healthy bodies, a crisis that threatened to derail a season that held so much promise. They were in survival mode, forced to turn to the league's emergency measure, the 7-day hardship contract. It's a temporary lifeline, a band-aid solution for a team bleeding out, and the name they called was Ariel Powers, a seasoned scorer, a former champion, and on paper a smart pickup. But this wasn't just about filling a roster spot. This signing sent an immediate and undeniable shockwave across the league, aimed directly at one person, Cheryl Reeve.
It just dawned on me, man, that Cheryl Reeve and Ariel Powers, man, was going at it when she was on that team. Now, she was signed to that team, I think, in 2022. She was actually their top scorer, now that I think about it. She was their top scorer. And all of a sudden, I don't know, they was just clashing a little bit. And then I remember Ariel Powers just coming out and just saying, hey, I want to go to a different team. I want to be on another team. She just blatantly told the world, I don't want to be here anymore, basically. And
Cheryl Reeve isn't just any coach. She is the architect of the Minnesota Lynx dynasty, a 4-time WNBA champion who has coached some of the greatest players of all time. Her style is legendary, demanding, meticulous, and completely uncompromising. She runs her organization with an iron fist, and her way is the only way. And as fate, or perhaps the basketball gods would have it, the Minnesota Lynx were the Indiana Fever's very next opponent. For anyone who has followed the league for the past few years, the signing of Ariel Powers by a Reeve-coached opponent was the equivalent of pouring a gallon of gasoline onto a raging fire. Ariel Powers.
Had Cheryl Reeve actually coming out and saying some slick stuff about her. So it was crazy what was going on between the two. And it boiled over so bad that Cheryl Reeve actually took her out of the game and started making her play like 10 minutes, 12 minutes a game. Now, she did get injured in 2022, and then she had to come back in 2023 off of that injury. So it was kind of like probably like a Aaliyah Edwards moment a little bit with Kiki Arifin, where she kind of lost her starting position. So it was kind of like that too. You're taking your top scorer, by the way, your top scorer, and making her play less minutes. I don't know what was going on between the two, but man, they did not like each other.
To understand the animosity, we have to rewind to 20. Ariel Powers wasn't just some role player on the Lynx. She was their offensive centerpiece. In a season where the team was struggling to find its identity after the retirement of Sylvia Fowles, Powers stepped up and became their leading scorer, averaging over 14 points a game. She was the one they looked to for a bucket, the one who could create her own shot when the offense stalled. She was, by all metrics, one of their most valuable players. But behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. The relationship between the fiery, outspoken player and the authoritarian coach was beginning to fracture.
Yo, when I tell you she better not be sitting by me, this would be crazy. We're getting closer and closer to the door. Excuse me. Oh, this is my seat, sir. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. No. Hey, how you doing? Now she's switching with her wife. Crazy.
This wasn't about basketball. It was a fundamental clash of ideologies. Cheryl Reeve built her dynasty on players who bought into her system without question. She values discipline, control, and a team-first mentality that often means sacrificing individual expression. Ariel Powers is the polar opposite. She is a massive personality, a player who thrives on emotion and isn't afraid to speak her mind, whether it's on the court or to her thousands of followers online. She engages with fans, she shares her thoughts, and she plays with a flair that can't be contained within a rigid system. In Reeve's tightly controlled world, Powers was a maverick, a variable she couldn't account for. And for a coach obsessed with control, that was unacceptable.
Kelsey, were you aware of what your teammates were going to do in terms of the t-shirt?
No. Oh my goodness. I was taken back. It was fun. It was funny. I was very humbled. I was grateful for my group. I love the people I play with. And to know that they would go out their way to make something like that happen for me, it means a lot more than people know because I have been here the longest. I have, everything that people talk about, I have been. And to know that my teammates kind of like see me as, I have value somewhere. And I feel like they make me feel like, I'm important to them and vice versa. And so that value means everything to me. And
The fallout was as swift as it was brutal. Reeve began to publicly and systematically dismantle Powers' role on the team. It started with a subtle reduction in minutes. Then she was pulled from the starting lineup. Soon the team's leading scorer was relegated to playing just 10 or 12 minutes a night. A clear and humiliating message being sent not just to Powers, but to the entire league. The tension became unbearable. Powers, feeling disrespected and ostracized, did the unthinkable for a player still under contract. She essentially went public with a trade demand, making it crystal clear she wanted out. The relationship wasn't just broken, it had been burned to the ground.
Jess Shepard became the 19th player in WNBA history to record a triple-double with less than at least 11 field goal attempts. We were just speaking last time out about role players and their strengths and how they're really a huge component to championship teams. Recently with Fee being out, there's been a lot of talk online and, as far as media and fans, as far as the MVP race. I was just kind of wondering from your perspective, game in and game out, what say you to those who try to discredit Fee's MVP race campaign because of having a talented roster and a franchise that cares about investment?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. We're not 23-4 through the first, whatever part of the season without Nafisa Collier. We don't have one of the greatest 50-game runs, stemming from last year to this year, and then, historic beginning to the season. And I'd say that, because our roster is constructed in such a way to win a championship, which is understanding you got to have more than an MVP on your team to be successful. But we're not in the place that we're in. We have I don't know what our game lead is in first place. MVPs come from the best team, and this best team has about a 6-game lead on the rest of the league. Nafisa Collier is the reason why. It's pretty simple.
But the most infamous chapter of this feud didn't happen on the court. It happened 30,000 feet in the air. On a team flight, the seating chart placed Ariel Powers in the seat directly next to Cheryl Reeve. For most teams, this might be an awkward but manageable situation. For Reeve, it was an impossibility. In a move that has since become the stuff of WNBA legend, Reeve refused to sit there. She immediately had her wife, who was also on the flight, switch seats to create a human buffer between her and her own player. You cannot make this stuff up. This single act revealed the true depth of the animosity. This had moved far beyond a professional disagreement. This was raw, personal disdain, a level of pettiness so extreme that the simple act of sharing recycled airplane air was out of the question. That moment perfectly encapsulated a relationship that was not just toxic, but completely irreparable. Now fast forward to today, and that same personal venom is being poured into a rivalry that was already at its boiling point. Cheryl Reeve's issues with the Indiana Fever didn't start with Ariel Powers. They started with Caitlin Clark. As a key member of the USA Basketball Selection Committee, Reeve was one of the figures who controversially left Clark off the Olympic roster. That decision turned her into an instant villain in the eyes of Indiana fans and the millions of new followers Clark brought to the league. But Reeve seemed to relish the role. She doubled down just weeks ago, when the Fever players showed up to a game wearing custom Kelsey Mitchell for MVP t-shirts. Reeve took it as a personal slight. In a fiery press conference, she went on a now infamous rant, lecturing the media that MVPs come from the best teams. She dismissed Mitchell's candidacy, threw shade at Las Vegas superstar Aja Wilson, and declared that her own player Nafessa Collier was the only one deserving of the award. It was a power play, a clear message to the upstart Fever: stay in your lane. Reeve already saw Indiana as an overhyped media creation. So for them to go and sign the one player she personally cast aside, it was the ultimate act of defiance. This brings us to the on-court chess match, the X's and O's of revenge. Reeve isn't just going to let Powers come in and have a storybook game. She is a defensive mastermind, and you can be sure she has a game plan designed specifically to make Powers' life a living hell. The Lynx are stacked with tough, disciplined defenders. Players like Kayla McBride and Courtney Williams are physical guards who will be instructed to harass Powers on every possession. Bridget Carlton is a long, versatile wing who can make every shot difficult. Reeve's strategy will be simple. Don't let her get hot. Don't give her an inch of space. Don't let her get that headline. The Lynx won't just be playing to win. They'll be playing to validate their coach's decision, to prove that Reeve was right to move on. They will be emotionally charged, playing to defend their leader's honor. But here's the fascinating counter to that. Ariel Powers thrives in chaos. She is not a player who shies away from the spotlight or the pressure. She feeds on this kind of energy. The chance to go directly at the coach who benched her, on national television, is the kind of motivation that can fuel a legendary performance. And because of Indiana's injury crisis, she's in a perfect position. The Fever have no choice but to give her a significant role. She'll have the ball in her hands, and she'll have the green light to score. It's almost poetic. The very coach who once stripped her of her minutes might now be forced to watch her play a starring role, simply because her new team has no other options. Every drive to the basket, every contested three-pointer will be a referendum on her career, a direct challenge to Reeve's authority. For Ariel Powers, this 7-day contract is the ultimate revenge tour. She's not just playing for a spot on the roster. She's playing to rewrite her own narrative. She's active on social media. She knows how to connect with fans, and she understands how to leverage a storyline like this. She can become the face of the anti-Reeve movement, a folk hero for every fan who felt slighted by the Clark snub or annoyed by Reeve's MVP rant. The Indiana faithful have already embraced her as their agent of chaos, the perfect weapon to unleash against their new arch-nemesis. Every bucket she scores will be met with a roar from the crowd, not just as 2 points for the Fever, but as a direct hit against Cheryl Reeve. So now, all the pieces are on the board for a showdown that feels bigger than just one game. It represents a clash of eras, a battle of philosophies, and a deeply personal war being waged on a hardwood court. On one side, you have the Indiana Fever, the desperate underdogs, led by a player with a monumental chip on her shoulder. On the other, you have the Minnesota Lynx, the league's dominant force, led by a coaching legend who is determined to crush this rebellion. Will Ariel Powers rise to the occasion and deliver a performance that silences her biggest critic once and for all? Or will Cheryl Reeve get the last laugh, her team's dominance serving as the ultimate proof that she was right to cast Powers aside? This isn't just basketball anymore. It's a soap opera with sneakers, and the final act is about to begin.